We've learned over the past few days that there was a recent data hack that exposed 2.9 billion, that's billion with a B, pieces of data, including millions of mailing addresses, driver's license numbers, and most importantly, social security numbers. Now, the problem is it's really hard to know if you were a part of this leak, but there is a strong chance that many of you watching may have had your data leaked. So today I want to talk for just a second about the most recent data breach, but more importantly, I want to talk about some provisions set up by both the Social Security Administration and the IRS to help protect you from identity fraud. But first, my name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. Now, while this channel is about helping people retire, a big part of my job is helping clients think about security and fraud prevention, especially since retirees are targeted at a much higher level than the general population. So let's talk for a minute about this most recent hack. What we know so far is a group by the name of US DoD began selling data troves on the dark web sometime around April, and it reportedly included 2.9 billion records and impacts people in the US, Canada, and the United Kingdom. One of the primary sources of the data being sold appears to be a company by the name of National Public Data, which is a large consumer data broker, meaning none of you have actually ever done business with them, but somebody you've done business with has done business with this company. Jeremy Fowler, who's a security researcher who's been following this really closely, said that we may not see immediate impacts. It may take criminal organizations a while to figure out exactly how to use this information, but his exact words were, "A storm is coming from this data breach." Typically, people who've had their data leaked have no idea that their information was part of the data hack until many years later. Now, if you're curious if you've been victim of a data breach, there's a website called I Have Been Pawned that can help you find out if your data has been part of leaks in the past. Now, it's just based on your email, so I tried it out. I put in my personal email address, and I found out that my data has been leaked 32 separate times, everything from Twitter to Adobe to the MySpace account I set up back in high school. Now, while stolen data often results in nothing more than spam in your inbox, in some cases, it can lead to much more serious consequences, including criminals will use their social security number to take out a loan or open a credit card, and then you're on the hook for the balances of those accounts. So then the question becomes, how do we protect ourselves? Well, luckily, the Social Security Administration, the IRS, and other government agencies have begun creating tools or a process for us to help protect ourselves, but it does take a bit of work on our part. The first tool comes from the Social Security Administration in response to an alarming trend that sees criminals stealing Social Security benefits. The scam works like this. The fraudsters will use stolen personal information, like what was just taken from this data hack, and then the fraudsters will either use the information to log in or hack your current Social Security Administration account, or they will use your information to create their own account. And once they gain access to your Social Security account, they will change your address, your direct deposit information, and even request replacement cards. So the Social Security Administration has some tips for how you can protect yourself. First, you need to create a mySocial security account. This makes it harder for someone else to create the account in your name. If you haven't created an account yet, it's easier for someone to create that account in your name. But if you've already created that account and you haven't logged in for a while, make sure you've logged in and enabled the latest security measures. In addition, if you want to take the next level of protection, the Social Security Administration has an e-services block, and this feature prevents anyone, and when I say anyone, including you, from seeing or changing your Social Security information online. Now, this is a drastic measure, but if you think you have been part of one of these data breaches, it might be something you need to do. Now, you can take it off. You can take the e-services block off if you need to be able to access your own account, but you're going to have to go through a pretty intensive verification process, and you'll need to contact the Social Security Administration to have it removed. There is also a direct deposit fraud prevention block, and this prevents anyone from enrolling in or changing your direct deposit information online. For both of these, either the e-services block or the direct deposit block, you'll need to contact the Social Security Administration to set this up or to make any changes. It is a bit of a hassle. Actually, it is a lot of a hassle, but it provides a high level of security. And so if you're concerned that either you might have been part of one of these hacks or you're just concerned in general, it might be worth taking this drastic step. But it's not only your Social Security benefit that's at risk. Another growing scam involves the theft of tax refunds. It works this way. The fraudsters will use your personal information, like your Social Security number, to file a fraudulent tax return, and then they're going to have the refund, your tax refund that should come to you, sent to a bank account of their choosing. Tax thieves will usually file the return early in the tax season, often before the legitimate filer has submitted a return. And then someday when you go to file your return, it's going to be rejected by the IRS because it's a duplicate return. And it's not until that point you realize you have a problem. Then you have to submit a special identity theft affidavit and file a paper return. And the worst part is it can almost take 2 years to resolve this issue and to get your tax return. So to protect yourself, the IRS recommends getting an identification PIN number, an IP PIN. The IP PIN is a 6-digit number that prevents someone from filing a tax return using your Social Security number. If the return does not include the correct IP PIN, the IRS won't accept it. Initially, these PINs were only reserved for victims of identity theft. So if you knew for certain that your identity had been stolen, the IRS would give you one of these IP pins. But now anyone can request a pin as a preventative measure. And once you have an IP pin, the IRS is going to issue a new one each year. So you're always going to have a new IP pin. Now, it can take some time to get this set up. And so depending on how you apply, you want to go ahead and take care of this as soon as possible. The other issue with the IP pins, in the past, if you requested one, you could never opt out. So if you do it for a couple of years and realize, you know what, I don't get enough of a refund to make this hassle worthwhile, you couldn't opt out. Now that they've opened it up to anyone, you can opt out of the program if you haven't been a victim of tax-related identity theft. If you have, you still are kind of stuck in the program. But there are also plenty of consumer scams, right? Scams that have nothing to do with governmental organizations. Someone can steal your information and then they can open up a loan using your Social Security number, and then you're on the hook to pay it. So the final tip comes from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, and they suggest that you freeze your credit. A security freeze or a credit freeze restricts access to your credit file, making it much harder for identity thieves to open up an account in your name. Now, many experts recommend that everyone should have a freeze on their credit file at all times unless they're actively applying for credit, such as a mortgage or a car loan. Personally, I've avoided doing that, partially because I'm at the stage in life where I'm taking out car loans and home loans and getting credit cards and all the things that people typically do. But after the most recent data hack, I'm considering placing the freeze on my own account. And I'm also entering a stage in life where I have most of that set up. And so I probably won't be opening any new credit cards or buying a new car anytime soon. So how does it work? To place a freeze on your credit, you're going to need to contact all 3 of the major credit agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and ask them to freeze your credit. You can do this online or by phone. If you do it online or by phone, they must place a freeze on your credit within 1 business day. And if you need to use your credit, you can request that they lift the freeze, and they must do it within an hour. You can also lift the freeze temporarily. The CFPB also recommends setting up fraud alerts. These alerts require creditors to verify your identity before opening any accounts or increasing the credit limit on your current accounts. After setting up an initial fraud alert, it's going to remain in place for 1 year. You can also do an extended fraud alert, which will stay in place for 7 years. The problem with all of these, whether it's the e-services block of the Social Security Administration or the PIN at the IRS, or freezing your credit, is it just adds a bit of friction to your life. And particularly when you're dealing with a government agency, probably a bit more stress. Or honestly, with credit bureaus, they're not known for being the easiest organizations to work with. And so you're adding some extra stress to your life in exchange for protection. In the past, I would have told you, I'm not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze. I'm not sure if it's worth all the hassle. But with the incredible rise in data breaches and fraud, including government agencies, right? One of the breaches was at a contractor for the IRS. So all this IRS information gets leaked because one of their subcontractors had a data breach, right? So even with government agencies, your information isn't particularly safe. So in conclusion, data breaches like we just learned about are just another grim reminder of the challenges of living in a digital age. And the problem is no matter how hard you try to keep your data safe, it's just impossible because it's exposed at the IRS and it's exposed at these large consumer data agencies. And all of our information, whether you like it or not, all of our information is out there, no matter how hard we try to protect it. But by taking some proactive steps, so whether it's creating a mySocial security account or securing an IP pin from the IRS or freezing your credit, you can significantly reduce your risk of falling victim to identity fraud. But no matter whether you take these measures or not, remember that keeping your information safe is an ongoing process. And I have an entire video where I go deeper into some of the ways you can protect yourself and also some of the ways that you're at risk from an increasing number of scams. And if you haven't seen that video, you can watch it now.